Hi, everyone. I'm Janelle Mose, AARP North Dakota's Advocacy Director, and I'm so glad you've joined us today for the Bismarck briefing. We'll be joined in a few minutes from Daniel from the City of Bismarck, who's going to be updating us about the feedback they received during some recent public input meetings. Before I introduce our guest, I've got a quick poll question for you to help set the stage. So for those of you that are on, and thanks for joining us again, we're going to pop up a poll question for you, and we want to know, did you participate in any of the public input meetings that were held by the city last fall or winter? So just as a quick reminder, as you see that poll question, go ahead and answer that poll question. Just as a quick reminder though, Bismarck is the first community in North Dakota to join the AARP North Dakota Network of Age-Friendly Communities. AARP's Livable Communities Initiative works nationwide to help support efforts of neighborhoods, cities, and entire states to be more livable for people of all ages. So before we get started for the briefing, to find out what Bismarck residents say, we're going to pull up the poll results to see how many of you participated in those local input meetings.
Janelle, we're going to have to just ask them to put in the chat or do it because the poll would not launch. We were having some technical difficulties, so no one got to vote on it as part of it. So my apologies.
So for those of you that are joining us, we're going to use the chat feature today then, both for the poll as well as questions that you're able to ask Daniel throughout the program. He's very open to answering questions throughout his presentation. But if you want to put in the chat quick whether or not you participated in the public input meetings, we'd love to hear from you. I see Bob's on and I see Ellen. Good to see you. So all right, so with that, I will ask Daniel to come on. And it's really fantastic to have Daniel here with us today from the City of Bismarck. Welcome, Daniel. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Janelle. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Good to see you. So do you want to remind our viewers about your work with the City of Bismarck?
Oh yeah, sure. So I'm a senior planner in the Community Development Department here at the city. One of my roles is to manage this update to our comprehensive plan, which is, as you know, has been going on for at least 9 months now, and will be continuing for the next 9 months or so. I do other things as well, you know, the general development review, downtown programs I focus on. So wear a few different hats, but this is the one that's kind of in front and center right now.
Well, great. And I'm excited that you're able to join us. I know that you've spent the last several months really finding different ways to engage residents across the community of Bismarck to find out what they think about both the plans. So I'm excited for you to be able to share some of those results today. And I know Bob and Ellen are on, and they've participated in some of those meetings. So if you want to go ahead and share your screen, and we'll be here to answer any questions that you have throughout the time that Daniel presents. So again, put your questions in the chat, or go ahead and come off mute if you have questions, but I'll turn it over to you, Daniel. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Janelle. Can I confirm you can see the screen here? Does that look okay? Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So yeah, I really appreciate having the opportunity to check in. This is a more of a quieter period for our comp plan update process. We spent a lot of the fall and the summer gathering input, having a number of meetings, a number of sessions. We're kind of putting pen to paper right now and trying to distill it all into something that will hopefully encapsulate all those comments, and then we'll have another round of much more active and outreach focused once we have something to show and to really get some reactions to. So, but this is good. It's really helpful to have people sticking with us throughout this whole process and seeing how things are going. I'm going to outline just a few of the events we had, and then I have one slide just sort of pulling out what I think were some major themes that we heard through the public comment, and then we can discuss that. And as Janelle mentioned, stop me anytime if you have questions about anything, and we'll dig into it further. So once again, Together 2045 is our comprehensive plan. Kind of a fun story about this logo is created by the Career Academy students, and Molly McLean has received a grant to build this into a mosaic, and she's been working on it. And the goal would be to have it embedded into a downtown public space location by the time this plan is finished. So it's kind of a fun, I think represents sort of what we're hoping for in this plan, is a collaborative process that results in something that beautifies, its environment. So the first piece of input And you may be already familiar with this. It was a household survey that was done in the summer of 21. I won't dwell on it. I think we talked about it the last time we met. It's important to us because it's a random sample survey, a scientific survey, so it hopefully represents, the average person in the community. We found there's too much to really summarize in this time here, but it's a lot of interesting results. I think I would say in general, we found that the population is fairly open to growth, understands that a growing city is a healthy city. However, really did want to see some proactive direction to that growth. The statement, Bismarck should have a stronger role in directing future growth and development to appropriate locations, was agreed to by 90% of the takers. The statement, individuals and developers should be free to develop land without many restrictions, was agreed to by 15% of the people who took this. So overall, I think they like the idea of having a hands-on approach, and there's lots of ideas that came out of the survey that we'll try to incorporate. We went to the Downtown Street Fair in the September of 21. This was also a chance to really get people who may not have heard of the comprehensive plan or really have much involvement in the city, or not part of the development community. They're just walking by, and so we had volunteers there, our staff members there, and you can see Molly working on the mosaic, and we gathered a lot of comments and a range of ideas really from this. Some of it was related to certain controversies that are more of the moment. For example, roundabouts, do we want them or not? But then there were also a lot of general comments about how we should be growing as a city, and so I'll touch on some of those in a moment here in the summary. We held 2 public meetings, formal public meetings in the fall, one up north at Horizon, another in the south side at Wachter. We had a few people attend. I see Ellen's on a call here. I believe you came to the Wachter meeting, if I recall. And so, those are good meetings to have just that face-to-face contact. However, as we all know, not everyone's comfortable with that, and so our attendance, I'd say, was not extremely high, but we did have good discussion, and it was I think a group that had a critical mass that could really dig into some of these questions. We did hold an online meeting that we attempted to really approximate all of the activities and all of the input that came as a result of the in-person meetings. We attempted to have that online as well. And so we had some survey forms, and we took the results of that online meeting, which did have about 100 people or so view, and then maybe of those, about half participate in the survey. And so we felt that was a successful option for people who didn't feel comfortable attending. The key game, we called it a game really, that we played during this meeting was putting chips on a map representing where you saw future growth potentially going in the city. It's an imperfect exercise. However, it really generated conversation about how we might grow and some of the pros and cons of that type of growth that was proposed, and we saw a pretty wide variety of different land use patterns being exemplified. However, there are some commonalities between all of them, or most of them, that I think we could pull out as well. So we did hold a number of focus groups. I believe some of you had participated in those as well, and these were helpful to dig into very specific topics that will be covered within the comprehensive plan. We had a group just related to Missouri River. We know this question has come up. The survey had some diverging responses. I'd say most people really wanted to keep the Missouri River corridor natural, basically as it is, parkland. There were a few responses that wanted to see some commercial development, some activity, like a boardwalk or something of that nature. So we held a focus group just to look directly at that. And I think that was a minority opinion, I would say, that wanted more activity on the Missouri waterfront. But we felt like that needed to be hashed out a little more in a little more detail. We had a group on housing, natural resources, arts and culture, downtown in particular, business and industry, infrastructure, transportation, public health, And in rural areas, it's the City of Bismarck plan, although it does affect the extraterritorial area in areas that the city may be growing into, and we wanted to make sure the people in those areas are represented as well, and their interests are heard. So I'd say those are the major forms of input we've had. Those focus groups that met in the fall will be meeting again soon. We'll actually be reaching out in the next couple of weeks to schedule an April meeting to basically see if what they told us is being adequately incorporated into the comp plan, or whether there's further changes to be made. So that's forthcoming. But a couple of themes that I think were mentioned by many of the, if not all of the commenters. Affordable housing was brought up very frequently. I'd say it was the most raised topic. It means different things to different people, and that was discussed as well. And I think there are separate issues. So there's affordable housing for those who are even housing insecure, that don't have a home at all, and that's certainly one topic that was raised, and needs for shelters and emergency shelters in particular. And then there's affordable housing for renters, and then affordable housing for homeowners, and then those are slightly different topics. And I think I think when we asked, probably the one that came out most was starter homes, or homes for folks who may be on limited incomes, who have lived in their homes for quite a while, and the affordability of those properties. And I think that probably rose to the top, although all of those concerns were raised during this process. And the cost of development and infrastructure came up a few times. It turns out that people don't really like paying taxes, or at least not more than they feel like they need to pay to get the services they need. And so the comp plan itself will affect that, and I think it's pretty well understood, and most people told us they thought, in fact, that the number one statement in the survey that got the most approval of all was a statement that new development should pay for itself. They should generate enough income to cover all of the costs, and so that does lead us down the direction of thinking about how to do that, and what kinds of development pay for that, and what kinds don't. And so that's an important, we're very frugal, it turns out. I think our respondents want to see their money used wisely. So the next item is related to that: compact growth and attention to the core of the community. A lot of comments about how we need to make sure our older neighborhoods don't fall into disrepair. We need to be perhaps providing assistance to people who are not able to keep up their properties. Lead line replacement, those sorts of things came up a few times. Parks and open space, this one, I think it was raised by a lot of people. I think we really were mostly scoring high marks for this. We didn't hear many people saying there were really problems or issues or major things that gaps that needed to be filled. It was mostly just praise. However, I think as the city grows, there is a desire to continue the tradition of having good quality park space for our residents. A lot of people mentioned being within walking distance of homes as we continue to develop. So no major problems with this one, just a lot of kind of opportunities to use. Variety of options for housing, entertainment, shopping. A lot of items came up. Honestly, some of these we have a hard time knowing what to make of, because there were a lot of suggestions for different businesses that could be here, or different types of uses, and a lot of that's really outside of the scope of what the city has control over. However, we do see people wanting to expand the number of offerings in the community, more in entertainment venues, more activities, especially for youth, I think, especially for safe and perhaps non-alcoholic activities for youth to engage in, I think came up a number of times. And also the ability to attract and retain people in our community through having lots of amenities. So that was brought up a lot of times. So need for bicycle and pedestrian connections. On transportation in general, it's fairly interesting. not a lot of people mentioned traffic as a problem. I thought there would be more, and there were a few. There were a few, especially in a north-south. We hear that often with north-south mobility, and that did get raised. However, I would say more people raise the issue of bicycle and pedestrian connections than traffic. I think that's a fair representation of what was presented to us, and there were a lot of good trails, and I think that was brought up, but I think the connections between those certain gaps, if you don't have a continuous trail, there can be a safety concern with that area between where you can't get to where you want to go. So I think that was raised a few times by our commenters. Development predictability. So I guess I didn't mention this, but we had meetings, or one meeting in particular, just designated for the development community. You know, the consultants, the ones who are in the business, and I'd say they highlighted above all, they would like to see predictability. They don't mind rules; they can follow rules, and they having the boundaries to, as long as they're fairly enforced and fairly applied. What they don't like is not knowing what to expect, so they can't build it into their own plans. So we heard that, and we can try to find ways to help in that respect. Quality of life amenities, and there's just too many things to mention, so I threw this in here as a grab bag of things that were brought up. Arts and culture were raised by a number of folks as well. Public arts were, I think, valued. Public health, having activity, and that really relates to that bicycle and pedestrian connections, but also just having local foods were brought up a few times, healthy activities for the community to engage in. So those are a lot of the major themes, and I think I'm sure we can talk more about each of those in as much detail as you'd like. This is really where we are in the process. We've had a number of meetings. We're not following quite as linear of a process as this shows here. We're not really working through each one at a time, but we're because I think as we got into this, we realized they're really all connected in so many ways. It made more sense just to work on it all as one. But you'll start to see things. Our goal is to have a full draft ready by the end of May in June, and we believe we have some opportunities to have really some experts vet this plan, and so it's all been in-house. It's a little bit unusual for comp plan updates in this area and actually everywhere to do it all in-house. Usually there's a consultant that leads these and brings in that outside expertise. So our hope is to, on the back end, have people look at this over and tell us, whether this meets kind of best practices from a national level, and whether there's things we can improve at that point. So even the draft that comes out in the end of May will likely change. Almost definitely will change in some ways as we kind of get the public vetting and the expert opinion at that point. So. Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions, or if there's anything you really think we should be digging into further that I didn't mention.
No, this was really helpful, Daniel. So I think there was a slide early on that you talked about the survey, the initial survey that was sent out to residents, and you talked a little bit about the stronger role that they want the city of Bismarck in terms of not necessarily controlling the growth, but can you talk more about that and what that looks like?
Yeah. So that particular statement, we didn't really qualify it. We just, those are the exact words we used.
Okay.
And then, however, when you look at a lot of the other responses, I should say all of these results are available. The link is right down here. What we've been doing is we've been kicking out these reports basically as they're finished. And so if you go to that website, I think we have 8 to 10 reports there. So probably more than you really have time or want to look through, but it's all there. So all of the results I'm referring to are all available for you to kind of scan through. But yeah, I mean, if you look through a lot of the things that were valued highly, and as I mentioned, having affordable housing for new homeowners and getting into that entry level of the housing market, I think was highly valued. The let's see, one thing that was fairly interesting is we asked people if they felt they would like to have more space in their neighborhood or more walkability. Sometimes those things are at tension with each other, and people have different desires. Not everyone wants to live in the downtown, and a lot of people like rural areas. And so we asked about that preference for a neighborhood. And we found that there is a really wide range of people. I'd say on average, probably more people wanted a spacious neighborhood, but a good, what's my percentage here? 19%, wanted more walkability than their current neighborhood has. So they wanted to be somewhere more walkable. And they may be, empty nesters who no longer need all the space they have and would like to be somewhere closer in where they can get around a little more. Or and so I thought that was an interesting result, considering the spacious neighborhoods are usually more expensive. So, usually people like moving up, but some people didn't want that. And so, yeah, there are a few different results that I think jumped out.
No, that's really helpful. Ellen or Bob, you're welcome to come off mute and ask questions if you have them, or anybody can put questions in the chat on anything that Daniel's presented. One that did come in, Daniel, just other than the focus groups that you mentioned will be coming up, are there other ways that volunteers like ours and other local residents can stay engaged if they're interested in the next steps in the process?
Sure. Yeah. So if anyone on the call has not signed up for a focus group, that's a great way. And they were not locked in November. So if people can join halfway through, and that's absolutely fine. So beyond that, we do have an advisory committee and a technical committee, and those, Josh is on the advisory committee, and those are public meetings, so anyone could come to those as well. And then and I should also say we're always open. We've received emails from people all throughout, and when we receive a comment, we put that into a file, and what we're trying to do is make sure every pass we take and the revisions, we look through all the comments and try to make sure. So if you send an email to me, I'll make sure that it gets included in that and gets included as a comment for this plan. And then, and as I said, that when we have the plan revealed in the end of May, that's kind of the next time we'll really need a lot of feedback.
Okay, so you mentioned that if someone did miss signing up to join one of the focus groups last fall, how best do they reach out? Is there a link on the website that they should sign up to be part of those focus groups, or how best would you recommend doing that?
Yeah, let's see. So yeah, we had a formal link in the fall to do that, but I think, yeah, that's a good question. Maybe that would be before we do this next round. I think maybe we should put something back up again so people know they have that opportunity. In the meantime, I'd say for all of you, if you want to just email me, I'll make sure you get added. But I think that's a good idea. We'll try to get something out again.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you want to, and Josh is way ahead of us. He already put your email address in the chat, Daniel. So you and I don't have to worry about that. The other thing is, I know you mentioned Josh is part of the advisory committee, but local residents and folks on the call today or that might view this later, once the plan is available, you're looking for public comments at that point in time, or there'll be a way for people to react to what's in that plan, and you'll let us know and we can probably share that with folks, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And if we'd like to have another round of public meetings. We're discussing the best format for that because the attendance was lower in the in-person meetings than the online meetings, but we'll be asking our advisory committee for the best way to reach out. However, we certainly will be doing another push for comments, and yes, we'll let you know for sure what those times are and dates.
Excellent.
Daniel, this is Bob. What exactly on your last chart, what exactly did the blue arrow on the top of the page indicate?
That indicates approximately where we are now in the process. So we're about halfway through.
Okay, thanks.
Daniel, if we attended like the one like at Wachter, are we already on your list that you'll let us know when the next one is, or do we have to reach out to you to say we still want to be a part of it?
So I'll double check, Ellen. I believe you're on you're on the list. So if anyone who's signed up at those meetings on the sign-in sheet got added to our mailing list for stakeholder mailing list, I will double check and make sure you're on it. I'm pretty sure you are in that, but if not, I'll add you on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So it doesn't look like we have other questions. Thanks, Bob and Ellen for your questions. And maybe Josh will pop in the chat the Together 2045 website. So if you want to go in and that's where you said, Daniel, most of those reports and other things, if people want to read more in depth about things that you covered, you know, very briefly today, they can go in there and read those reports at a later date. Okay, great. Well, with that, I want to thank you again for joining us this afternoon. It was really helpful to see where you're at in the process. And I know, you know,
Janelle,
yeah, go ahead, Josh.
before you go too far, maybe just a second. So, because I know we're recording this, because there'll be a few others that probably couldn't make it today that I know wanted to. I'm just going to quickly show, and it might be beneficial for Ellen and Bob too. I know I'm going off script. I apologize. But I believe, can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Can you see the Together 2045 website? Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So when Daniel says the reports, what he's mentioning is these ones right here that you see under project materials and updates. So the overview of public outreach activities, fall 2021, that one, there's a land use and development capacity report, a rural development timing report, a Bismarck and context report, which by the way is really interesting to see where we've come from and the periods of growth we've gone through, the household survey report, existing land uses, and a century of planning in Bismarck. So I just thought it might be helpful for folks to actually see the website. And since we're recording this, they know where it is. In addition, you can see at the bottom here, I know Daniel mentioned emailing him and I put his email in the inbox. I should have probably double checked with you before I did that, Daniel, but
No,
thank you for volunteering. But there's also a chance to get e-notifications or email the planning division on the actual website as well. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Janelle, but before we got too far away from it, I thought I might just quickly show that and show people where to find it and what it looks like as part of it. So
No, that was really great. I think it helps to see where to click. So great. So as you can see, again, thanks again, Daniel, and I know we'll be in touch, and please reach out to us. I mean, if there's any way that we can help continue to push, you know, and get others involved in the local input meetings coming up this spring, we're happy to help. So
Okay, thank you.
great. And so on your screen, just to close things out, we do have some other upcoming events that we'd love, you know, folks to participate in. Next week is Brain Healthy Cooking Tips, which we all, you know, now as we turn towards spring, we're looking at ways to keep ourselves healthy and prepared for spring and summer. And then two of our most popular events are coming up on Tuesday, March 22nd, and then Tuesday, March 29th, which is our retirement readiness series, which includes Social Security and also Medicare. So you can go to aarp.org/ND events and go ahead and sign up for those events if you haven't already, or there is a QR code on the screen that you can scan that using your smartphone and register from there as well. So, and the other one that we've started to explore this year, getting folks involved in our advocacy work, and we have what we call AARP on Tap, and those events are hosted every third Friday at 11:30 in the morning. And again, you can register by using the QR code or the link that's on the screen. But Kathy Schwan, our volunteer state president, hosts those events, and she really provides almost a fireside chat for you to get involved in conversations with her. Last month, we talked about prescription drugs, and I'm sure in the next couple months, we'll talk about voter engagement and how you can find out what's going on locally related to races that are coming up. And if you've been you have a new legislative district, we have a lot of great information coming forward in the next few months about voter engagement. So check out these AARP on Tap events the third Friday of every month. So again, thanks for joining us. And again, if you want to find out other events that are coming up in the next few months, go to aarp.org/ND events. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks a lot and have a great afternoon.